Well, please stand, and Mr. Ben, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is the Planning and Zoning Board and also the local planning agency. It's an advisory board which makes recommendations to the county commissioners who will make the final decision on all these items. Items on today's agenda will be heard by the county commission on May 26th. Items H1, H2 are LPA items. When a motion ends in any kind of a split vote, a roll call vote may be taken to ensure accuracy. As a reminder, each member who makes a motion or a second needs to turn their microphone on so that your voice is on the record. At this time, if any board member has had any ex parte communication regarding any application, please disclose so now. All right, seeing that, I ask for approval of the P&Z minutes from April 18th.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chair, second.
A motion by Bruce, a second by Ben. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously. Well, we are going to be missing our vice chair, and he is actually, we have a confirmation, he's resigned, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so we will, at the end of this meeting, be looking for a nomination for a chair, vice chair, co-chair, however you want to say it.
Vice Chair.
Your replacement.
All right. Item H1.
Mr. Chairman, before we get started, I just wanted to do a couple housekeeping items. So Jennifer handed out a couple pages for you to review. I don't expect you to review it before this meeting started, but I just wanted to go over those. You have a nice handout. It's nice in red and green. This is the 1255 consistency table. It's a little bit easier to read and color coordinated with that. That is there for you to review. I also printed out the administrative policies. Those are your guiding principles of what you guys should be looking for when these applications in front of you. Some of it's for zoning, some of it's for conditional uses when we have them, but the administrative policies gives you that guiding principles. The other information in your packet is I put our code requirements as far as the LPA and P&Z, your duties and responsibilities, as you sit on there. So, and then finally, there is a copy of an ordinance that the board just passed on May 4th with those changes, and you can review those at your leisure. The next email that Jennifer sends out, there will be a disclaimer on that. You can respond to her, but just to her. Do not hit reply all. So when she's asking for a quorum, just send it to her and not to everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr.
That's
Chairman,
very helpful.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
a question, or not a question, but a request. This is a very nice document, and I appreciate that, but could you give us another page document that includes the zoning and lot size listings? I think that would be very helpful for us to have as a
Sure, we
reference.
can do that for you. I have one in my packet. If, before you leave, Mr. Barcher, I can give you my copy, and it's just, for staff review that, it helps us when questions like that comes up. And I can certainly do that for you and anybody
Okay.
else that wants it.
Thank you.
Are you going to interview the new person sitting next to you? I don't think we've met her yet.
I can.
Would
So
you?
there's a couple changes that are going on in my department. Jane Hart she's been a comp planner, 3 years now? Going on 3 years, so she's moved over to zoning. So she's not new, she's just new to zoning.
Okay.
Welcome.
So
Welcome to the fun.
Tanya's sitting in the, she's down right here. She's also one, she's been working for the county for many, many years. She's coming over to zoning.
All right. Good to have y'all.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. afternoon, board members. I'm Jane Hart, planner with Brevard County Planning and Development. The first item on today's agenda is H1. Charles K. Donaldson requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, 22S.04, to change the future land use designation from Res 1 to Res 4. The application number is 22SS00001. It's tax account number 2416959, and it's in District 2.
Okay, thank you. And you're representing the applicant?
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Kim, I know you know the drill when you get to the podium.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wadsworth, members of the LPA. We're here today on a request to change the future land use amendment. I am representing Charles Donaldson, who is in the audience with me, and his wife Judith Donaldson, who also resides on the property and has been a property owner at various times from 1975. That's how long they've owned this property. This is part of a larger parcel. Well, first let's start with page 1 of the packet. That obviously is the property details that shows Mr. Donaldson is the owner, the location of it. The deeds going back to 1975, that's when they first obtained possession of this property. There are 2 buildings on this property. One has been there since 1901 and one has been there since 1950. So this is old Merritt Island North Tropical Trail. Page 3, this is part of what we're asking for the change of the future land use is part of a larger parcel. The entire parcel is 7.66. It's split by North Tropical Trail. The portion west of Tropical Trail reflected in page 3 is the property at issue. It's 5.5 acres. Page 4 is actually from the staff maps, and that just shows that this parcel is EU, and it is next to quite a bit of EU. Almost everything on that map to the south is EU, and then you have some EU to the north. That SEU zoning came in more recently than the future land use amendment in 2009. Page 5 is what we are requesting, that Res 4. There is other Res 4 not too far from that area. As you know from reading the staff report, this was all Res 15 until 2009 when the small area study was done. At that time, when they came in and administratively changed the future land use, they left the EU zoning, which is inconsistent. So they've made this inconsistent, they being the county. So this has an inconsistent zoning with the Res 1 future land use. This was due to no fault of Mr. Donaldson or his wife Judith. And so now, as they are wanting to sell half of their property, creating 2 lots, 3.25 acres and 2.26 acres, which you see on page 6. That is how they intend to split the property into 2, one keeping their homestead, one selling. They're under contract to do so. That's why we're here, hoping to get a resolution this month so the contract can go forward. I did not submit this future land use application. I took it as I found it. It was submitted by Mr. Campbell. Staff disagreed with Mr. Campbell and said it should have been a zoning. I was not part of that discussion at the time. But I do believe this could simply be solved with the BDP. I don't even think we need to change the future land use. There is recently precedence for this with the Dunkin' Donuts. When I took Dunkin' Donuts on North Merritt Island next to Divine Mercy to the County Commission, District 2 Commissioner at that time requested us to put a BDP on the future land use amendment to limit access, or actually to define access. So there is some precedent, even though 621255 doesn't seem like it could be, but there is precedent, and the county attorney has reviewed it as to Dunkin' Donuts, and you can address a future land use by a BDP, in my opinion, and from that recent example. Mr. Donaldson does not wish to change his zoning. That's why we're here with the Res 4. Again, this was Res 15. The property on the other side is still Res 15. So it's still, there is some Res 4, Res 15, so there is some over the road that's a little higher. So it could indeed be a transition. This zoning is site-specific. It has specific details of what you can do with the setbacks and the size of the homes and things like that. So we don't want to make any more inconsistency by changing the zoning, and we just choose to change the future land use. So the issues are, one, whether a 2 and 3 acre lot is consistent with what's in the area, which it is. Then there's the issue of policy 1.2C, which is referenced in your staff report, and that is referenced on page 3 of your staff report. Policy 1.2C states that in the residential 4 land use, centralized potable water and wastewater treatment shall be available concurrent with the impact of the development. This impact of the development is still only 2 units on 5.5 acres. It's not like the one you saw last month where they actually wanted to do 3 or 4 units in an area that didn't have potable water. So this is different. This will still be consistent with the development. And frankly, I don't agree that this requires central water and central sewer. It just says it shall be consistent. So I do not think that this future land use amendment would violate policy 1.2C. Now, D does say it shall connect, but again, we're not developing 4 units to the acre. We're developing 2 units to 5.5 acres. It's more of a substance over form issue with this change request. Policy 1.7, which is also referenced in your staff report, still on page 3. It talks about a step down in density, again, when you have residential 15 on the east side of North Tropical Trail, a very narrow road, as you're aware. It is a step down from 15 to 4. Also, under Administrative Policy 4, the character of the neighborhood, this land use change will not materially or adversely impact the established surrounding neighborhoods. In fact, it's still very consistent with what's around it in North Tropical Trail in this area. So the last page of the staff report says the board consideration, is this request consistent and compatible with the surrounding area? And I believe the answer to that is a resounding yes. So starting on page 7, I proposed a binding development plan for the future land use. And this is a bit different. I added quite a bit of language to it just to explain why this is being done. I believe this could be done without a change to the future land use. I think it could be done with a change to the future land use of Res 2 if you didn't like Res 4. But I would request that you approve the recommendation with this BDP. This BDP talks in, starting at page 7 in the 4th whereas clause, that the future land use was changed in 2009, resulting in an inconsistency between future land use and zoning. The property is now non-conforming under a stated code section due to no fault of the developer owner. That the developer wishes to mitigate negative impacts, which is standard BDP language, consistent with 2 residences such that no violation of the future land use policy 1.2 occurs. And then the recitals are paragraph 3, limit density to 2 units to the acre, and the rest is standard BDP language. So with that, again, the intent is just to allow them to subdivide their property and to sell it consistent with what everything else is around there. This was not due to their fault. This was due to an inconsistency in 2009, which should have been fixed at that point and was not. So with that, I can answer any questions. The Donaldsons are here to answer questions if you have any.
Okay, hearing that, I bring it back to the board. We have any questions for the
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moria?
Quite a few.
Mr. Chair, do you want to open up for public comment first?
Well,
I just before, I had a question about what you said before you leave, so I don't forget
Okay,
what you
that's-
said.
I have no problem
And there'll
with
be
that.
more questions later after we hear from the public hearing. But you said in the BDP, the language says one thing, but you said it says something else. So I just want to clarify, is it limiting the density to 2 units total or 2 units per acre?
2 units total. Do I have
Okay.
per acre? If I
No,
do that
you
to-
said that, but it does,
my
Okay,
mistake.
just wanted to
2
clarify.
units for 5.5 acres.
thank you, okay.
And
That-
can I ask a quick question too, while she's still here?
Yes.
So are you suggesting that the binding development plan replace the comp plan change amendment? In other words, put the binding development plan towards the zoning that's already there?
That is
And
what
not-
I'm asking in an abundance of caution.
Well, I'll check with our attorney when
Yes.
we're done, but that's what I wanted to know.
But yes, because I did this recently with the Dunkin' Donuts, so I don't think you have to change the future land use if you have a binding development plan, but again, this is something new, and I would prefer the recommendation of both to go to county commission and let them figure out what they prefer to do.
Yeah, because if you do the land use change, then policy 1.2 becomes a problem,
Yeah.
potentially.
Potentially.
So have we, and you're saying we've done that, that's been done before, where the land use has been kept the same, but the BDP is put in place to make it consistent?
Not in this particular circumstances, not with that potable water but there is cocoa water there, and as we all know, sewer is coming up that way, right? I
Right,
believe.
but that may or may not help you, whether it's in the future or where it needs to be there now. So I see what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
and
but
what may
again,
or
our
may not happen.
residential development proposal is not for density of 4 units to the acre.
Right.
So I believe it's still okay with policy 1.2, with the binding development plan.
All right. Well, hold on one second, Ms. Kim. Is anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? That's good news.
That is good news.
All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. And Liz, you had a question for the attorney?
Well, I wanted to ask if what she's proposing is something that legal could support.
Right, so we dealt with this, I believe Mr. Zank is referring to the Dunkin' Donuts case that we dealt with. That dealt with access that we limited. This is advertised as a small-scale comp plan amendment. So if we're going to take a different route, we would have to re-advertise with the BDP, and I don't know if that's the route you or your applicant
All I
wanna go
know
at
is
this point.
I can count on my hands and feet how many times I've come before this board and county commission for a rezoning, and they've implied a BDP at that time that was not advertised.
Yeah, but the comp plan amendment was,
This is a comp plan
But
amendment.
this is a comp plan amendment with a BDP that's come about because of the request in the staff report. I don't see this any different than when a rezoning comes up.
Yeah, our BDPs go to the zoning, not the land use.
Let me just interject for a second.
Would you please?
So the whole reason why the BDP came about is to provide that consistency, because that table that I gave you, you look at
Yep,
EU,
that's, yeah.
Res Forest doesn't have that. And so for whatever reason, we use these BDPs to cap the density for that. That's for a rezoning,
Zoning.
not for a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment.
Okay, that's what I thought, because, I mean, if all the property was consistently zoned to your land use, we wouldn't see Kim as much as we see Kim.
So right now, as we're speaking, my professional opinion is a BDP cannot provide a consistency for the comp plan.
Okay, and that's basically the county's, and that seems to make sense to me.
And it has to be re-advertised, because we advertise for a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment. A BDP is not a small-scale comprehensive
Okay.
plan amendment.
So then if they do get if we don't worry about the BDP and we just look at the land use request, does 1.2 pose a problem? Are you planning to redevelop this, or are you just trying to sell it and make sure it's compatible?
It's under contract to sell half of it, the tract.
And you can't divide it because it's inconsistent?
Correct.
And that's
But
the-
you're not going to build any, there's already 2 houses on there, so you're just selling one of the existing homes. So you're not developing anything.
One's going to be, I believe, torn down and rebuilt,
But
yeah.
it's still, to me,
Yeah.
a single-family home, it's
So-
not a development.
So, and my only point of bringing up the Dunkin' Donuts is that it was used in a future land use amendment, which was unusual.
That's unusual.
And I know Titusville conditions their future land use amendment, so it's done in other jurisdictions. Whether or not this board wants to take that risk or county commission wants to or not, I don't know. It's, yes,
Understand.
I know 621255B does say zonings, but if all we're doing is putting 2 units, we're not violating the policy 1.2. I don't know how you can condition that. other
Let's
than-
talk about 1.2 for a second. And so the whole intent of 1.2 was to require, when you're developing at 4 units of the acre, that you have water and sewer, because 4 units of the acre is a quarter-acre lot, or potentially. That requires water and sewer. So what this board has to do
Well,
is determine the
not-
intent.
Not really. I mean, the way I read this, one requires that it's available, and the other requires that you connect. Two
If
different
it's
things.
developed at greater than 4 units to the acre, which is not going to be.
Understand, but the first part is if you get this land use, it has to be available. So if the water's in front of the property, and you build a new home, you have to connect to that water system. If the sewer's far enough away that you're not required to connect and it's not considered available by state statute definition, then you don't have to extend sewer to get to it. But if you are developing more than 4 units per acre, which is a development standard, then you'd have to connect.
Correct.
So basically, unless I'm reading this wrong, if we approved it at Res 4 and you built a new home, you'd have to connect to the water, but you don't necessarily have to connect to the sewer if it's not considered available by state definition.
I can agree with that.
Does that sound right? Okay.
So
So then maybe the BDP is not necessary.
well, one of the things so the Res 4, is that 2 units?
Res 4 is 4 units to the acre.
So that's what we're talking about right now. Right.
Potentially.
So the comp
But
plan
the zoning's,
without,
but the zoning's not going to change. The zoning's EU.
Correct.
And what is the lot size at EU?
10,000 square, 15,000
And
square
with lot
feet.
width and all that other stuff, I mean, is this even
Yeah,
possible
here,
to
give me a
develop
second, I have
any
it
more
right
than
here.
2 units on this property?
So EU requires 15,000 square foot lot area. Lot depth and width is 100.
And what is the lot width
The frontage is
right now?
125. We can't build more than 2 with the frontage on the river.
Because you need to do a flag stem to do this, right?
Right,
So you can't build more than the 2 units.
correct,
So the whole density thing is really a non-issue.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
You went around the whole corner.
so, no.
Okay,
So
well,
basically what you're saying
Is
is,
Res
we
4's
don't
not
need
a
the
problem.
we don't
We
need
need
the
the
binding
BDP,
development
right.
plan. And the Res 4 would get them to the 2 units. They've got water that they can hook to. They will not be required to hook to sewer because it's not available right now. And they can't go any higher than 2 units.
That's what it
based
looks like
on-
to me.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, unless there's other questions, I'd like to make a,
I have a question.
okay, question.
How will this affect the parcel to the east?
I don't know that it would affect it at all.
That's there.
It's a roadway to
Yeah,
the east,
it-
right?
Parcel to the east, it's not impacting their parcel to the east. It's not,
about their parcel.
yeah, it's not included. The legal description for this is just for the A and B, the 5.5 acres. So that will stay AU zone with a Res 15 future land use. Again, an anomaly in the code. It just,
Any other questions from the board? Okay, Liz, I'm ready for your motion.
All right, so Mr. and Mrs. Donaldson have come a long way. I've known them pretty well. They were there for Watersmark when that whole subdivision never came to fruition, had their water turned off, just a lot of dirt and dust. And so, I think this is a great use for your property. It's consistent with what's been going on North Merritt Island. So I make the motion to approve the comp plan designation from Res 1 to Res 4, and not include the BDP.
Second.
We got a motion by Liz, a second by Bruce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Okay, item H2.
Item H2 is OBC Realty LLC requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, 22S.05, to change the future land use designation from Res 15 to Community Commercial, CC. The application number is 22SS00002, and it's 2 tax account numbers, 252-1003 and 252-1005 in District 2.
Okay, and is the applicant here?
Yes, the applicant is here, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here before you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff. I'm Rochelle Lawndales, FAICP. It's been probably a couple of years since I've seen you all, and it really is nice to be back, even on this side of the dais. This is a really simple request, and it is a really small-scale land use amendment as a result also of an inconsistency that occurred back in 1988 when the original future land use map was adopted by the county. And so our request today is to create a consistent situation between the future land use map and the zoning by changing the land use so that our client can redevelop the property. Under the CC land use, the BU1 zoning district, which is currently on his property, will allow him to do a mixed-use project. We're not exactly sure what that entails yet, what that might include, but it will most likely include a mix of commercial, retail, restaurant, and some residential. And because the site is so small, all of the footprints will be very small as well. What you have in your packet are just a couple of descriptive things that I would call to your attention, and that is in the report that I provided you on page 2, it shows a generalized location and surrounding community in a 2-part map. And you can see that the area really is quite a mix and melange of uses that have peacefully coexisted from the beginning of the space age. And what is being proposed will allow for redevelopment of a site. I called it, I think, derelict in my report, and that was sort of being kind. It really is ripe for redevelopment. What's happening now is there's no open space, there's no stormwater management, it's all sheet flowing into the Indian River. The redevelopment of this property will allow for stormwater treatment pre and post, new defined access on A1A. Right now, it's just completely open. New site landscaping and green space, which was represented on page 5 of your report. New and good waste management, and something that concerns us all is a sidewalk along A1A with the little rubberized things at the curb, at the corners, for pedestrian safety. It really doesn't get much simpler than this. They'll have to conform to all of the site design standards within your code and come in for site plan approval. So with that, I think that I'll just close by saying we cannot redevelop the site and bring it up to modern day standards and help do some environmental sustainability without creating this consistency. So we really hope that you will consider this request favorably and grant us this land use amendment. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you or the staff or the public has.
Good. Can we ask
Yeah, and then I'll call for
I
the
thought you were
public.
intimately familiar with this site.
Right?
one? I don't know. I knew you were
I think
going to
all
go. I knew they were going to go there, yeah, historical site.
very historical.
I knew you guys were going to give me the business. Rochelle, does the city of Cocoa Beach require you to go into the city if you use their wastewater treatment?
No,
That, they don't do that yet, like others do?
not to my knowledge,
Okay.
and we're pretty far away from
Yeah,
their
you're far away. I don't
city
think you're
limits.
contiguous to anything down there. I didn't know if that,
Yeah.
I'm just.
I don't believe so. I've
Wondering
not
about
heard
their
of that
policy
yet.
because, you know,
I haven't
being
heard
so
of that
close
yet.
to the river, that certainly helps, you know, so. Anyway, okay. That was my only question.
Away from the city, yeah.
It's south of Snug Harbor.
Yeah, it's just north of the base, actually.
You're lucky they didn't show that as a historical site.
I'm not sure they include those uses in in the historical register, but you never know.
Been there a long time. That's all I'm saying. That's it. That was all.
Any other
Thank you, Mr.
questions from the
Member.
board to the applicant? Hold on one second. We're seeing that. I want to go out to the audience. Anyone want to speak for or against this item?
That's good news.
Come on back, Rochelle. Between you and Kim, we're doing good so far.
Yeah, I would like to, I mean, this is, redevelopment is always a really good thing, especially from an eyesore like this. So I'm just going to move things along and recommend approval of the request.
And I'm going to just comment, Rochelle, you and your team put together a good package.
Thank you.
I worked at District 2 for many years, and they call this the no man's land, District 2, because it's not city, you know, and the redevelopment that Bruce is describing, most of these places end up just staying the way they are and then changing. I mean, I see gas stations on Courtney that are now hairdressers because they don't have the means to do the landscaping, the stormwater. So, you know, taking care of all those things is just critical. So I fully support this kind of redevelopment, and so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allward.
Okay, we got a motion by Bruce, a second by Mr. Menemboo. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Good seeing you, Rochelle.
You too.
Item H3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to read H3. Clifton Thomas requests to change the zoning classification from BU1A to RU1-13 with a BDP limited to 1 unit. Application number is 22Z00012, tax account number 2954089, located in District 3.
Okay, is the applicant here? Sir, if you could state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Clayton Bennett with Bennett Engineering and Consulting, 4940 Ranch Lane Road, Melbourne, Florida, 32934. I'm here on behalf to represent Clifton Thomas with the rezone request. Similar to the others, we have a zoning future land use that are not consistent. The parcel, this is down in South Melbourne Beach. The parcel is currently vacant. It's zone BU1A. To the north, there's a business development. To the west, single-family residence. To the south, there's a vacant parcel, and then A1A to the east. Across the street, there is the motel, and there's a restaurant there. I believe it's D'Angelo's. The comp plan, the block is all Res 1, everything that adjoins the parcel. The zoning, the BU1A there is along A1A. To the west, we have RU113, which is where we're looking to bring that RU113 into Lot 1 there, the subject parcel, to be able to develop a single-family residence. Currently, the zoning BU1A would allow for the commercial development. Staff has determined that, you know, it would be 6,534 square feet of commercial space. The proposed development is going to limit it down to a single-family residence, which would be a reduction in the intensity of that particular parcel. We've included the BDP. That's simply because of the inconsistency with the comp plan, which, again, that was done with the change of the future land use back in the early 90s, changing the South Beaches down to the Res 1. One item to note is the parcel to the south is currently vacant. They have submitted a building permit application for that. Militano Construction has, and that went in, it appears to be May 2nd here recently. And the reason why I bring that up is on their plot plan that they submitted, they show a setback to the common property line of 9.9 feet. The BU1A zoning setback allows for a setback of 5 feet to the side property line. So we kind of get into a little bit of a timing issue here, because if our zoning were to be approved, the setback would change. Let me just show you here the BU. This is the BU1A setbacks for when you join a residential zoning. You have 15 feet. When you're on a non-residential zoning classification, there would only be a 5-foot setback. So currently there's a 5-foot setback, and when the parcel is rezoned, it would go to 15. Since they've already submitted the building permit application, what we've, the owner has agreed to do would be is to request that the rezone request be tabled for one meeting before it goes to the Board of County Commission meeting, in order to allow sufficient time for them to come in and get their building permit. So we would look to go from here, instead of going to the May 26th meeting, we would go to the.
Mr. Bennett, can you speak up into the microphone? Jen's having a hard time hearing you.
Sure. Yeah, we would, instead of going to the May 26th Board of County Commission meeting, we would agree to table it at the May 26th meeting and go to the August 4th. We can actually, as I understand from staff, we can submit a request 10 days in advance to postpone that and go to the August 4th meeting, which would give them over 3 months to get their building permit, which is more than adequate to do so. If there's any questions, I would be glad to answer those.
Okay, seeing that, hearing that, I bring it back to the board. We got any questions for the applicant?
So are you saying you want this board to vote today and then table the item for the county commissioners to delay it?
Right. What we would like to do is, see where the board is on this. I mean, yes, we would like to vote on it today. As in your opening statement, this is simply a recommendation board. Nothing changes with the vote. And then we would move to the, request a table to move it to the August 4th meeting at the Board of County Commission, so we don't come back here before the planning and zoning again.
It's very neighborly of you to do that for the guy to the
Sure.
south.
I don't have any further questions.
Any other questions by board?
Mr. Chair, can I just jump in for a second? Because I think I'm reading your faces, and I think you're a little bit confused. So what Mr. Bennett is asking for you to do is to make a recommendation here today with his request, and then he will submit his letter asking the Board of County Commissioners to table his application to August 4th. Because right now the schedule is for this to be heard on May 26th without that tabling. And that would allow the extra time for the adjacent property owner to the south to get their building permit.
Right. Perfect, thank you. Very nice of him, because that would have really put a hurt on the guy.
Hearing that too, I take it out to the audience. Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Ms. Kim, I don't think I got, the procedure, name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Kim Rosanka, here on behalf of Tom and Paula Hoy. It's spelled Haughey. They're the parcel owners to the south. I'm with Lacey Lyons Rosanka, 1290 US 1 Rockledge, Florida. Also with me are Tom and Paula Hoy and Kyle Militano, who is the contractor of record who has submitted for the building permit. The Hoys object to the rezoning from BU1A to RU113 because of the impact it's going to have on their property. And it's not just a timing issue, it's a forever issue. This is their forever home. They started building this in started designing this in November of 2020. They are 10-year residents of Brevard County. Mr. Clifton bought this purchase in January of 2022, and he has a Connecticut address. This is going to impact their ability to build their house. This is not necessary. They can build in the BU1A. This is simply changing one inconsistency for another inconsistency. If you look at that chart in the, that's in the staff report, there's a double asterisk next to both of them. So this is an existing inconsistency. The chart of the staff report, Mr. Moya, the staff comments where it has a little consistency with land use, it says the current is inconsistent and single-family resident unit is inconsistent. So it's still going to be an inconsistency if I'm reading that correctly. But regardless, you're still going to need a BDP, so it's going to be an inconsistency. The proper avenue for this, if they want to change their setbacks, is a variance. Or if it's a non-conforming lot, they can use the conditional use permit request under 621190. They're seeking relief from the front and rear setback, which my clients, the Hoys, are actually abiding by. They're abiding by all the setback requirements in the BU1A to develop a single-family home. So the big objection is, as I said, it's not really a timing issue. It's creating, if they get the building permit, and if that does indeed vest them to build their home, if the zoning goes through, it then becomes non-conforming once it's built because its setbacks are too close to the property to the north. So if it's torn down by a hurricane or a flood, they can't rebuild if it's more than 50% destroyed. So this zoning will make this existing plot plan inconsistent, and that's why they're objecting to it. On page 1 of the packet I gave you, the red square is the Hoy's property. Page 2, the red square is the Hoy's, showing them in BU1, BU1's to the north, BU1's to the south. And then page 3 is their plot plan, which you saw from the applicant, and it shows that they will lose 5 feet of their home. And granted, they're saying they'll wait for the site plan to be approved, or the site plan to be approved, construction plans to be approved. But you'll see that they are complying with their 25-foot rear setback. They're complying with the 50-foot front setback, the 25-foot Flamingo Drive setback. This has been revised about 12 times since November of 2020. It's hard to see in the little in the little site plan of the next couple pages, but they have revised it several times. So they would lose 5 areas of living space, 3 floors, about 1,000 square feet. And again, even if they are vested, they will be immediately inconsistent with this when the zoning takes place. Page 4 and page 5 show 2 of the site plan application pages. In the upper left-hand corner, as I said, it's really hard to see on page 5. You can see all the revisions to this plan. This has been a labor of love for them because this is their forever home. I did attach on page 6 the procedure for mitigating a nonconformity. So perhaps they could go through a conditional use process or a variance process. But having a rezoning that immediately causes a neighboring property to be inconsistent is not the purpose of the zoning code, or to be nonconforming. The specific concerns regarding the code and the comprehensive plan, Administrative Policy 3, Mr. Clifton's site activity will significantly diminish the Hoy's enjoyment and quality of life of their property. As I said, they will cut 5 feet from their 3 floors and would require a completely new plan. Also, they've already ordered truss packages and windows. As we all know, it's taking forever to get those. So they do have investment in this current plan. Many of you know better than I that if you submit a site plan and you get it, I don't know if that vests or not. I presume it does, but it doesn't help if it's torn down in a hurricane because of the non-conforming nature of the structure once the zoning is granted. So with that, we would ask for a recommendation of denial to this rezoning request.
Sticky wicket.
I don't have it for Kim, but is what she's saying, that would have changed our policy here. That has never been the case on hurricane disasters. Is that changed now?
As far as I understand, it hasn't changed. If you have a
You can
structure.
put your exact footprint back.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's not a non-conforming structure
No,
once the zoning comes in
no.
place?
I'd have to look specifically at the
never-
code, so I
It
don't.
never
want-
used to, in a hurricane, it never used to be.
Probably not, well, yeah, because the inconsistency is on the other property.
Well,
Does it really transfer the fact that now that there's something different?
Yeah, I don't want to say yes or no, because that part of the code, like most of the code, is very intricate and a lot of twists and turns. So without looking at the code, I'd have to look at
Probably
it.
would be.
would you respond to us with that? That's a mouthful, believe me.
Well-
People losing their houses and whatever it might be.
I mean, one thing I don't understand, so you've got two properties with the same zoning, the same land use, the same engineer. One's building a house, the other one's building a house, but only one's asking for a rezoning.
Yes, because the Hoys meet the setbacks. And Mr. Clifton wants better setbacks than what the BU1 requires. It has a 50-foot setback from the front lot and a 25-set rear back. The RU113, I believe, has a 20 and a 20, or a 25 and a 20. So they can build a bigger house with the RU113 zoning code than
Right.
they can with the BU1A
Which
residential use.
may result in the difficulty in getting a variance if it's a self-imposed hardship.
We're going to create temporary setbacks.
Interesting. It's a very interesting.
But you're still considering,
issue.
you're still, when you rezone it, and you have to have a binding development plan to cure an inconsistency, it's not the purpose of the zoning code to create more inconsistency, it's to fix inconsistencies.
True, no, understand that.
So, if we need to check if I am correct, because every time, Dave agreed to postpone to August 4th, transferring them to July 18th P and Z to find out that answer. But it's always been my understanding that if you've got a non-conforming structure, which we would have if the zoning passed, and it's destroyed by more than 50% for any natural disaster or any reason, even arson, you can't rebuild. Thank you for your time.
So you would need a conditional use to become conforming,
Yes, we did that with the South Banana River Marina many, many years ago.
and that's right out of the code section?
Yes.
For mitigating a nonconformity.
Correct.
And you
So
can't
we-
guarantee, and there's no guarantees that's going to get
Well,
approved.
but the Hoys are complying with the zoning code
Oh, I
as
know,
it is. So
I
we don't want to
understand.
have to go get a rezoning or get a conditional use.
Of course, no, I
So,
understand.
but that may be an option for Mr. Clifton, if they do indeed have a nonconformity.
I understand.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask Mr. Bennett to come up if he has any rebuttal?
Is the subject lot in question, does it meet all the lot requirements for the RU 113? So the lot, if you rezone it, the lot would be conforming to that zoning, right? We're not creating a non-conforming lot if we rezone this, are we? Does it meet all the lot size requirements? I don't know how big this lot is.
Yeah, I need to look at, that size but just a couple of responses, a couple of comments. One is the rezone does take the commercial element out of what can be built there. So right now you come in, there could be professional office, whatever, whatever is allowed in the BU1A in that neighborhood commercial use could be built there. It could be built 5 feet from the side property line, even if the neighbor builds a single-family home. It's based on zoning, so that 5 foot, the subject property currently would have a 5-foot side setback to the common property line. If it's rezoned, it would move to 7.5 feet. The 50-foot front setback in the BU1A is set in order to provide sufficient space in the front for a business-type development, for parking and so forth. For a single-family home, that's not needed, and so there becomes this excessive front setback when developing based on use for a single-family home. As far as going back to answer your question, as far as on the lot width and depth, I believe it does, but I need to confirm that. Yes, maybe. Has staff looked at that?
It looks like it's, if this plat is correct, that lot's 69 feet
Right.
wide.
Correct.
And it needs to be 75. So can we even do that? Can we even create a non-conforming lot with zoning action?
No, we can't. That, for the proposed zoning district, it has to meet the minimum requirements for the zoning.
So we can't rezone this.
For RU 113, he's asking for RU 113.
What's the minimum lot width?
Minimum lot width for RU 113 is 75.
Okay. Well, I think that answers that question.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask for clarification. So this is a non-conforming lot of record, so the applicant is coming in to request a zoning change. And in our code, when you have a non-conforming lot of record, it allows you to ask for any zoning classification that you wish to develop the property. So that's what the application is here today. That's what you guys are considering. The fact that the new zoning classification, the lot does not meet that standard is kind of irrelevant.
Okay.
As long as they don't exceed the density requirements, which is why you have the binding development plan is associated with that lot.
Thank you.
Mhm.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir, please.
And this is a question for staff. It would appear that A1A is the BU1A classification for transportation purposes and speed of transportation coming off the highway. The RU113 is more of a residential, so your speeds for your traffic and traffic delays are much less. Would that be a fair assessment?
RU 113 is a strictly residential
Correct.
zoning district. BU 1A is I would say the first transition from a single family to a commercial use.
Along
So-
the main arterial like
Yeah, so you
A1A.
would typically see a BU 1A zoning district to provide that buffering between transportation corridor to a residential area.
Okay, and so this would be an inconsistency if it went to RU 113.
I wouldn't classify it as a inconsistency. Certainly, we have areas that have residential zoning that are adjacent to, A1A.
Yes, yeah. But for the entire west side of the A1A, it's all zoned uniformly.
And this section between, or from Heron Drive down to Pelican Drive, it's predominantly RU 113 with most of the properties B1A. I will say that there is
They're all
some properties that
adjacent,
are RU19 already and are R1, which are both residential zoning districts.
Correct. Thank you.
Can I ask staff a question, please? So how does that impact the development on Ms. Rosanka's client's property by saying she loses 1,000 square foot of building footprint because of a rezoning request from the adjoining property owner?
Well, we're looking at a rezoning request now. Certainly, when you look at zoning requests, we don't have the opportunity to look at building permits that come in. So from a zoning district standard, each one of them has setbacks. And depending on when they come in, if they come in before before it gets rezoned, they have one set of setbacks versus another. So it's kind of like a moving target, so to speak. And so understand that BU1A, specifically has setbacks for those uses in there, which are commercial, lower intense commercial uses, where RU113 is strictly a residential zoning district, where it requires 7.5 feet versus the 5. Does it impact, we'll look at the building permit and make sure that the appropriate setbacks are enforced.
Thinking back, we've probably done this 100 times where we've rezoned residential to commercial and vice versa, not even considering how it affects the neighboring property as far as their setbacks or if there's existing structures on, if it's non-conforming or not. But I guess now in this case, since it's been brought to our attention that.
So really it's 2.5 feet because the BU1A is 5 feet, RU113 is 7.5.
2.5, yeah.
15?
Well, but yeah,
Oh, because it's a corner, oh.
yeah, because where commercial abuts residential, it increases the setback.
My apologies, you're correct, 15 feet.
That's definitely a little injurious to the neighbor, isn't it? Wow.
Any other questions for Mr. Bennett?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I don't quite understand why it's irrelevant to the lot size is irrelevant. If he wants to go with an RU113 and the lot width is only 70 feet or whatever, you can't do that.
I think it's the same as like we do in like Canal Groves where somebody has to have a minimum of an acre lot and they've got 0.9 and they ask for a BDP to build a house. Because even though their lot size is inconsistent.
Wouldn't a variance?
It's non-conforming. So there's a non-conforming clause for existing lots that were created prior to a certain date.
Correct, and so what that means is that the non-conforming is, the size of the lot, they still have to meet the setbacks for the zoning district,
Right.
whatever that is.
Right, but I think the date is like, what, 1985 or something like that? That as long as it was created prior to a certain date,
Yeah.
that clause applies. But you
there's-
can't do it now. You can't create a non-conforming lot, but if it was non-conforming by, as of that
Yeah,
date.
so in the grand scheme of things, the non-conforming lot of record would be the last resort. For the first remedy would be a land use change, the second would be a zoning request to provide that consistency, or in some cases, variances to that.
Tell me, what's the depth of that lot, east or west? The shortest point.
Sure.
111.81 according to the plat.
So if you had it at the BU1 zoning, you'd have to chop 50 feet out of that, right? For your
There'd be
frontage,
50 feet that comes off right from A1A.
which would leave you with another 50 feet for your house, without you got a rear yard
Rear
setback
yard of
requirement
25.
also.
Right, so
Excuse
75 come out of the 111.
me? Which would not allow you to build anything, really.
And the fact that that property to the south is zoned commercial is irrelevant, that it's a residential use, that setback for them will still apply, even though it's a residential use, just because it's a commercial zoning.
No, it'd be based on the zoning district,
Right,
what
not
that-
the use, yeah.
Yeah, not the use.
So that's the rub.
Can the applicant apply for a variance to where they could build the house up? Almost, I drive down A1A a lot and see a lot of very small driveways where people are just pretty much backing straight onto A1A, to where he can build, and then the neighboring property can build as well.
The applicant can apply for a variance. I hate to, there's so many nuances with this. I don't know if this would be an appropriate remedy. Certainly, it'd have to be vetted to see, but that is, one of the remedies that you could do for setback relief.
Well, I don't know if anybody has any more questions, but I don't really like where this is going. I'm going to make a motion that we deny the request.
I second that.
Who seconded? We got a motion by Bruce, a second by Ron. All those to deny, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That was denied unanimously. Yeah. Okay, item H4.
Mr. Chair. Never mind.
The next item on the agenda is item number H4. William L. and Sharon R. Feagan request a change of zoning classification from AU to RR-1. The application number is 22Z00010. It's tax account number 3022409, and it's located in District 1.
Is the applicant here? Sir, if you could come to the podium and get as close as you can to that microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Bill Feagan, 4835 Lion Lane, Mims.
And a little bit about why you're wanting to do this.
It's zoned AU, and I need to go to R1 to get a building permit for it. Because you got to have like 2.5 acres to get on a permit for AU, if I'm not mistaken.
Anyone got any questions from the board for this applicant?
I have a staff question. On your report, you're showing it at 1.008 acres. On the appraisal district, they show it at 0.93 acres. And if I took the dimensions that are on the flume map, it's only 0.89. Which is it?
I talked to my surveyor, and they said that supersedes what the county says on the tax appraisals. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we would take what the survey shows or a legal description.
I think the survey should have been a packet I filled out as well.
I didn't have that.
You'd be surprised how inaccurate that.
Yeah, I know.
website is.
There were 3 different ones instead of just 2.
They're close, but
So we're going to call it 1 acre?
it's not, it's just under, right?
Yeah.
No, it's just over an acre.
It's just over an acre.
According to the survey.
Yes, sir.
Sir, hold on one second. Hearing that, is there anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? We're doing good so far. I'll bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion by Bruce, a second by Ben. All those in favor say aye.
I stole Henry's second, he can have it.
Okay. That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, item H5, Heath and Shannon Morgan request a change of zoning classification from RU-1-9 to SR. The property is 0.69 acres located on the north side of Miami Avenue, approximately 200 feet east of City Acres Road. The application number is 22Z00011, tax account number 2863495, and it's located in District 5.
Sir, if you could state your name and address for the record.
I'm Heath Morgan. I live at 203 Charles Drive in Melbourne, Florida.
And a little bit of why you're wanting to do this.
So we purchased this land in 2005 with the intention of building a single-family home. When we purchased it, it had been parts of different lots, and it was re-subdivided. And apparently, what we learned, what we learned is we could not get a building permit because the zoning inconsistency between RU-19 and Res 4 that's there. And because the lots were subdivided, it can't be grandfathered, and so that we cannot build a home there. I learned this recently because we actually changed our minds. We tried to sell the lot, or it was under contract. The potential new owners did some due diligence and learned that they could not get a building permit. So here I'm trying to rectify that situation.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against this item? We're doing good so far. Seeing that and hearing that, I bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
A motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion by Mr. Bruce, a second by Henry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Have a good day. Item H6, please.
Item H6 is PR Corporate Holdings LLC and AK Blue Holdings LLC request to change the zoning classification from AU to RU-1-11. Application number is 22Z00013, tax account 21-05549, located in District 1.
And ma'am, are you the applicant?
I am. Good afternoon, board. My name is Kim Fisher, 1614 White Dove Drive, Winter Springs, 32708. Good afternoon. I saved you a few seconds by walking early. We have an old dilapidated building on this property. It's got, it's residential home. It's going to be torn down, and a couple of garages. One looks like it's already practically burned down. We are trying to get it out of the agricultural state, and the future land use is currently Res 4, so we want to get a zoning that's consistent with our future land use. I believe the fire department of City of Titusville is going to be utilizing this land for the next year for some training also. We do have city water, and it will be on septic tank.
Ma'am, just hold on there. Is anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, go ahead and come on up, please.
My name's Eva Goins. I've never been to any of these board meetings before.
That's okay, Miss
I
Eva.
left-
Just
I
state
left
your name,
work,
though, please,
okay,
and address for the
to
record.
come here. My address is 3120 Diamond Road. I'm on the same road as this development that is supposed to go in that area. We are all on 1+ acre lots, most of the houses on this road. I purchased my house in 2019, which is on 0.91 acres. And I purchased it because there was a lot of privacy in other homes on that road similar to my home. There's elderly people that live on that street that have lived on that street 30+ years. And they're all, most of them are acre or more lots there. Now, I called the engineering company because we first received an engineering letter from an engineering company saying that if we had any questions, that there was going to be a plan to change the zoning. That engineering company explained to me that a subdivision is planned to go into that property on that 4.36 acres. And they're planning to put, because Titusville will only let them put 75 by 75 lots, they can't go any smaller. They will put a house on 75 by 75 lots. Up to 12 to 15 homes are going to be in that 4.36 acres on a road of an established country road, basically. We border Titusville and Mims with acre-plus properties. And it's going to create 12 houses, say that's the least they're going to put in there. Every household has 2 or 3 cars. So you're talking about 24+ cars coming in and out of our one street That's an L-shaped street that goes from Dairy Road onto Old Dixie Highway. My neighbor, I'm surprised he's not here. I don't know if he wrote a letter. He was canvassing our whole neighborhood. However, we're either working class people or there's elderly people that live there. He said that he will put his house up for sale immediately if this subdivision goes in. I wrote down some words of that attorney over there to try to school myself, but it will impact our neighborhood and our quality of life greatly on that road. It is not consistent with our current community. For them to put a subdivision entrance on Diamond Road in the corner on that 4.36 acres. It is absolutely nothing like any of the homes on that road.
Okay.
And I will literally move myself along with probably everybody else because it'll be horrible. That's all I can say, is there's, like, you turn out of our road onto Dairy Road and there's one single a four-way stop with one light. There's a school, there's a elementary school or a middle school right down the street. I mean, it's just not consistent, to use the attorney's room. It is very inconsistent with our neighborhood. And our
Okay.
quality of life will be greatly impacted.
All right.
So whether the fire department, that's the first I've heard, none of us have received anything saying the fire department is going to do training. We know nothing about that. All we know is we received letters from an engineering company saying they're building a subdivision, this holding company. PR Corporate Holdings, LLC, AK Blue Holdings, LLC, that they are building a subdivision in there. That's what the engineering company told us.
All right.
So that's what I have to say about this issue. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it. AK Blue Holdings, I looked up. It looks like Kevin Collins is the manager, and he lives in Anchorage, Alaska. Caitlin Collins, who's the agent, has an address of Oviedo. PR Corporate Holdings, LLC, Stephen Furr is from Winter Springs. That's all I know about these people, but I do know they're planning to put a subdivision in it.
Well, the bottom line is you don't want it there, correct?
I guarantee I don't want it, and neither does any resident on that street.
Okay. All right.
So,
Thank you, ma'am.
that's the bottom line.
Okay.
I'm just a nurse, I'm not an attorney, really don't know much about this stuff, but I left work today to drive 80 miles to come here to this meeting.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Anyone else in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Ma'am, if you could come back to the podium. Hearing that, I bring it back to the board. We have any questions for the applicant?
Did you want to talk about respond to some of that?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
please.
you. Yes, I did send out letters, and she did contact me. I've had a couple of other neighbors contact me. The two others contacted me wanting to sell their property to us. One had a power line through it, so my client wasn't interested. We will be following all code. Again, our future land use is residential 4 units to the acre. The county is going to require a 75 by 100 lot, not a 75 by 75, so we will be abiding by all county codes. I think we can get maybe about 13 homes in this parcel, so it's not a tremendous. We are consistent in size we abut to the west and to the north, a subdivision of the same size. To our east is commercial. So the only residentials we have is across the street, down the street. Diamond Road has 2 access points, not 1. Traffic should not be of any significant increase, considering you can exit on Dairy and you can exit on Old Dixie. So the increase in traffic should be minimal. It's very consistent with what's surrounding, and I think whatever we just build there will also have to be consistent with our neighbors.
Okay. Or we're here just concerned about the zoning?
Yes.
If I can, just
Yes, sir.
concern, and I'd like the board's opinion. I mean, you do have the RU 111 all around this property, but they seems like they're on more major roads. What do you guys think about this going on Diamond Road? Because it is more of like the neighbor said, a country road.
Yeah, kind of. I was just looking at the surrounding because you kind of don't see everything when you look at the what was provided in the package. So basically, Diamond Road ties into Old Dixie if you go east, and it ties into Derry if you go south. The development to the west that she was talking about that they border are 80 by 100-foot lots for the most part. But all the lots that front Diamond, except for as you get east closer to Old Dixie, you get some quarter-acre lots. But most of the stuff south of them is all very large lots, acre plus. There is one lot in here that's only, I think, a third of an acre, a third of an acre. So I'm surprised they're not annexing into the city of Titusville, but
I can answer
it's kind of
that.
almost transitional between the large lots and the small lots. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's inconsistent because it does match what it's to the west, but there really isn't like a transition from very large lots to very small lots. They're butt right up to each other.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I
sir.
have a question for the applicant. Will you be bringing water and sewer into this?
Actually, and I'm glad you asked that. Water is directly in front of our property, so it's really not a rural area. We have a fire hydrant directly in front of us. And I want to, if you don't mind me addressing the city of Titusville. City of Titusville, their code is very specific that you must connect to their sewer system, and the sewer system is what's not readily available. It's not anywhere near us. They have agreed to allow us to utilize their water without annexation. So we did try to annex because we have some other stuff in city of Titusville, so we have a pretty good relationship with them, but we have water directly in front of us.
Will your development be bringing in the sanitary?
No, it's too far away for a development this small to bring the sanitary, which is why we're not annexing into Titusville.
Okay, so you're anticipating septic?
Correct.
To do a lift station, it's going to cost them $300,000.
And the level of service for the road, which I believe is Dairy Road to SR 46, that's at a level of service D. And just like grade school, A through E is, D is not very good. So the neighbor has brought up a very valid point that, your transportation level of service is at a D and you don't have sanitary.
Sure, and with level of service D, there is some capacity we're going to bring, let's just say 13 homes. That's a peak trip of 1 per home. So with the level of service D, you still have capacity. Even a level of service F has some capacity to it. That doesn't mean there's no capacity to it, just means your wait times are a little bit longer. But we also have the dual access, so we can either go to Old Dixie or to Dairy. So that's a little unique in this situation where we have more than one direction of traffic flow. So a peak of 12, daily peak is very minimum, or 13.
Well, according
I think
to
if
the
I said
neighbor,
13 homes.
maybe not.
Well, I think sometimes in all fairness, anytime there's change, neighbors aren't very accustomed to change, but considering our north and our west, we are going to have the same size lots, and our east is commercial. So we're very compatible with what's surrounding us.
Well, we're looking at the improvements that would be necessary to bring it up to an acceptable level of service and to bring in sanitary. Whose costs? Would that be developers' costs, or would that be through impact fees, or would that be through anticipating a future development by the county and the county's taxpayers pay it?
Unfortunately, a lot of those questions are great questions, and some of them we just can't answer at a rezoning stage. We did look at the sewer, but it's too far away for us to connect. City of Titusville agreed, but the City of Titusville code is very strict that all subdivisions must connect. So when we met with City of Titusville, they agreed also it's too far away for us to utilize sanitary, but they would allow us to utilize their water system without annexation. They submitted their little capacity letter stating that. I had checked, it was a couple of years ago, I checked with the county, and their roadway was fine as it is. It didn't appear that Diamond needed any improvements.
Okay, well, staff has says it's a level of service D.
I understand that.
Okay. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
The neighborhood to the west, are they on septic also?
They are not on septic, but their connection is the opposite direction. Their connection is nowhere near us.
Is that American Village?
I'm not actually sure of what the subdivision name is.
It's called LaGrange
But I saw some
Acres.
manholes.
The Raid Bakers?
LaGrange Acres, that's what it's called.
Yeah, I saw some manholes, so I know that they're in septic, but we looked with the city of Titusville, we were looking at any way and every way we could to annex, and we couldn't. We begged.
Mr. Chair, if I can, I'll make a motion.
Yes, sir.
Just based on its location being on Diamond Road, it doesn't sit well with me, so I will move to recommend denial.
I'll second for discussion. And also, I'd like to remain consistent with how I voted in the past. I don't think we need to be increasing densities if they're not going to be able to hook to sewer. And, currently they can have one single-family lot on sewer, not 17. So I'm going to support your motion.
So I would assume that's a second. We got a motion by Ben, a second by Liz for denial. All those in favor say aye. That was quiet. Any opposed?
Aye. You made the second.
I did the second.
And you
Deny. He voted to deny.
No.
I thought you voted
The
to
first
deny.
vote was to deny, the second was to oppose the denial.
I voted to deny, yes. Let's do roll call.
He voted to deny, I second the denial.
Right, and then he asked for a vote of anybody that wasn't in favor of the motion, and you voted aye.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I went on to the next item.
Okay, we're going to do a roll count to be sure we have it right.
I'm sorry.
I was the only nay vote. Everybody else voted to deny it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way it went.
Yep.
That did not pass.
But thank you for letting the firefighters use the process.
Is it up to you now? Item H7?
It's up to me. I'm the last one. So item H7 is Health First, Inc. and Health First Shared Services, Inc. Requests a zoning change, a change of zoning classification from BU-1 and BU-2 to PUD with waivers. Application number is 22 PUD 0001, located in District 2. I don't want to take any thunder away from the Health First group and Kim. She's got a fantastic presentation that she's going to present to you. This is a very dynamic application in the site plan that shows that, so I'll let Kim explain what's going on.
I have to find the PowerPoint. Oh, there it is. Oh, great. Okay, thank you. All right. Good afternoon. Last item of the agenda, Kim Rozenka with Lacey Lyons Rozenka, 1290 U.S. Highway 1 in Rockledge, Florida. I'm here on behalf of Health First and Health First Shared Services. This application has been a lot of work, not only for Health First and their consultants, but for staff, and we do appreciate all that staff has done to help us with this. This has been a 2-year process. We've had 2 preliminary applications. We had this final application that came in, met with staff several times. They've given us several rounds of comments already, and this is just a PUD zoning with a preliminary development plan. As I believe you all know, preliminary development plan is like a concept site plan. It has a lot of stuff on it, but it's not final. Not all the engineering has been done yet. So we're still working through it. So this is the preliminary plan and what we believe we need from you to make this PUD happen. It's a 15.05 acre site. It's very large. It's very unique. It meets a lot of different demands for this wellness village, which I believe you've heard it called that before. So I have with me a number of people. Let's see. Well, now I have it up. How do I make it go forward?
Hit Control L and it'll go full screen.
Okay.
Where did he come from?
Okay, and then how do I advance it?
You can arrow through with the arrow keys.
Oh. Ah, great, thank you. You know me, I'm old school. I use paper, so this is new for me. Again, I am here with Matt Jarrell, who is the CEO of Health First. He is here if you have any specific questions about Health First commitments or things that you want them to do. Jonathan Flight is the Vice President of Health First Systems, Facilities, and Constructions. He's going to do the bulk of this presentation. He is the man in charge of this project. We also have Ken Good, who's with Adkins. Adkins is the engineer of record for this with civil engineering. He also has with him Chris Russo, who's the traffic engineer from Adkins. This is still in preliminary stages. We've done the counts. We don't have a final traffic impact analysis yet, but it's coming. And we're going to do whatever the county requires to make everyone at this facility safe and everyone in the neighborhood safe. And they'll explain that as they go through this process. I did want to let you know that there was a community meeting on April 25th of 2022 before we went to Myra. There were about 49 people, actually there were exactly 49 people that showed up for that 2-hour community meeting on site at the Healthplex. They opened it up, turned the air conditioning on, let people come in there, and answered questions for 2 hours. So there was lots of time for people to come in and see what was planned, to make comments, to criticize, to ask any questions they wanted to do. So that did occur. And if you have any questions about that, we can answer those as well. We also went to Myra on April 28th. They were very excited about it. There was an article in the paper about it, and they recommended unanimous approval at Myra for this project. They're excited about the redevelopment of this area and what it could do for the redevelopment of the entire area, including the mall. There's also an article in yesterday's paper you may have seen. Did a very thorough analysis of everything. So this is a very detailed application, very detailed PDP, and Mr. Flight's going to go through this. And if you have any questions, he can answer along the way. It may be easier, but you do it however you deem fit at the very end. When Mr. Flight's done, Ken Good is going to talk about the actual PDP, the drawing. And if you have questions about that, and talk about the waivers if you have questions about that, and then we'll have questions. We have 2 other engineers here. We have many people from Health First and the contractors if you have questions. This is an exciting project. We thank you for your time. And at the end, we will ask for your approval of the preliminary development plan and the PUD. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. If you could state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Jonathan Flight. My address is 1575 West NASA Boulevard, Melbourne.
All right, thank you, sir.
And it's my pleasure to be here. I want to give you an orientation of the project generally, and some specific information about useful to get the full concept, fully in your vision. And we have before us a slide which shows that the northern 1/3 of the parcel in the upper right corner is dedicated towards the new Cape Canaveral Hospital. And we've developed the concept so that all of our patient rooms have a view of the Wellness Village Park, or the Indian River Lagoon, or the Rookery Conservation Area to the west. And the remaining 2/3 of the Wellness Village is comprised of a medical office building, a child daycare, a concierge, a wellness retail facility, a juice and coffee bars, a healthy food hall, a spa, and an education center, and a fitness center. Now, this concept allows us to make a very dramatic change in the character of the area by providing a significant new green space and significant landscaping in addition to these facilities. The hospital itself is planned to be 300,000 square feet, to have 120 private rooms. It'll be designed to withstand a Category 4 hurricane. and it'll be elevated 13 feet to address the possibility of storm surge on Merritt Island. In conjunction with the hospital, there's a 90,000 square foot medical office building. The floors of the hospital and the medical office building open out onto this park-like setting of the village, and it sits actually on top of a 2-story parking garage. And here we have the next slide, which is the site plan. And we use this slide to highlight the access and circulation to our village. On the very north end, on East Merritt Drive, there are 3 connections to East Merritt Drive. And working from left to right, you have a service entry, the ambulance entry to the hospital, and the emergency department patient entrance. Working down Borman from north to south, or from top to bottom, we have a same-day surgery discharge, we have an entrance into the garage, we have a public transportation drop-off and pickup spot mid-Borman, and then a second entrance into the garage. But our main entrance is off of 520. And as folks enter our campus, they'll either proceed into the south end of the parking garage, or they'll travel along the west perimeter drive to the hospital main entrance. This slide is a cross-section of the entire campus. It's looking at it as if you were standing on Borman Drive and sliced the building in half and looking to the west. The ground level of the hospital and the central utility plant is shown on the right, and that shows that 13-foot elevation for protection from storm surge. On the left side of the cross-section, it shows how the 2-story garage and other features are arranged, and they marry up to the hospital itself. This cross-section view gives us a feeling of the 3-dimensional character of the site. And to assure efficient vertical movement within the site, there's a total of 19 elevators planned within the project. And they're positioned to give good access to all the services we're providing. And this slide is a ground level view. It's a perspective at the ground level of the hospital's main entrance. You can note the circular drive in front and how it serves the main entrance. And the glass connector on the right side will provide a protected walkway between the hospital and the medical office building. And this perspective gives us a view of standing in the Wellness Village Park, looking to the north. It's actually the south elevation of the hospital. And the progressive stepped massing of the hospital itself, it prevents us from overpowering the community and our own park. And here we are with views of what some of the buildings will look like in the village itself, on the park. Several of the buildings are portrayed. On the upper left, we have our education center. On the upper right, the healthy food hall. On the lower left, there's the retail facility. And on the lower right, I should say, is the coffee bar area. And I will kind of restate what Kim mentioned, is that we did have a community meeting. I was present. I helped folks get a grasp of what we're trying to portray here, and had very good support from those attending, but there were concerns about traffic and noise. And as she mentioned, we're in the middle of our traffic study. We will comply with what is required for traffic in the area. We are interested in safety, and we're interested in our community, making sure we bring something of value, not something of dangerous. Also, the noise, it will be addressed by our acoustical engineering folks, our consultants along those lines, and we are very interested in a quiet, restful nature for this campus. That's the intention, wellness and health. We'll also make sure we comply with the code for noise. And that's what I have. I want to invite Ken Good up to give us some more details on the project.
Good afternoon. Ken Good with Atkins, 2671 West O'Galley Boulevard in Melbourne. So the preliminary development plan, the center part of this is a lot of waivers. Our staff spent a lot of time with county staff developing all these waivers. I don't want to go through every individual one, but happy to answer questions on those if you do. The waivers themselves are really centered around two key components, building height and building setbacks. We are not asking for any waivers on density or trying to increase the amount of building square footage we can get on here. What we want to do is be able to cluster these buildings together to produce a product, a development like this. The traditional zoning that it's under now, it could be developed, same uses. It encourages a broad, flat, lots of pavement, broad buildings. This allows us to cluster these buildings together and create the green space that John was talking about. You know, we've got a large park and a lot of green space on this site that wouldn't be possible with the traditional zoning. The two key areas where the waivers are focused around, one's the hospital, allowing us to build that taller hospital and position it on the site in a manner that works with the whole village concept. And then the other group of waivers really focuses on the podium, the park concept, again, allowing us to increase some heights there and push things out to the setbacks and create that park in the middle that John had the pictures of. We can get into any of the details on these waivers you like. My colleagues are here, can answer those questions. I know another piece that you probably have some questions on is how do we do stormwater once we cover up the whole site? A lot of the existing site doesn't have stormwater components on it right now. Obviously, we're going to comply with all the current stormwater codes. There are 3 points of discharge already on that site, one to the north that goes under East Merritt, one to the west that goes into that existing pond, and then one to the south that goes onto the 520 system. All of our treatment attenuation will be done on site. Much of it will be done in underground chambers and systems, so we can maintain that green space up on top of the site. That's all I have. Turn it back over to Kim.
Thank you, sir.
I know there's a lot of material in your package. I don't know if you have specific questions or if you want to hear from the public and then ask questions, or how you want to proceed. I know in your packet there is a petition that's concerned about noise and traffic. And again, we don't have all the answers for traffic, but we will comply with code. And your staff is very good about safety issues dealing with transportation. And the noise, we do have an acoustic engineer. They've done a study regarding the helipad, and they are doing studies regarding all the noise that comes from there. So if you have specific questions, we're happy to answer them, or if you want to wait till after the public,
Yeah,
that's
let's
fine too.
wait till after public, Ms. Kim.
I've got a bunch, but you're not ready.
All right.
So I want to take this out to the audience. Anyone want to speak for or against this item? And when you come to the podium, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Kitty Fletcher, 800 Del Rio Way, unit number 204, Merritt Island, Florida.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, we are not against the hospital going here, but we think that there's some poor planning. They took the worst street that is going to be coming in the hospital and made it the emergency avenue. They've got 3 entrances coming off Merritt Avenue. We already have accidents there. We've had fatalities there. The other thing is they put their central processing plant at the back, which is the closest area to Harbor Del Rio, which houses 115 units. So the only residential that it backs up to has their loudest piece of equipment. And yes, there's a helipad, but they're not a trauma hospital, so it's not a every hour thing. So
Right.
Is that a once in a while noise? So, I mean, we're not against it, but those are major issues that need to be taken concern of. You cannot widen Merritt Avenue because of the conservation areas. There's a bunch of people here from our unit. A lot of them are still up north, but a lot of them have signed the petition. And we're just,
Yes,
what we're
we actually
asking
have
is
a copy of that petition
is that
here.
they work with us and not put their worst stuff on our, within 480 feet of our property, because people who bought there bought because it was a conservation area.
Okay.
So,
All right, now is everyone, I saw some hands over here to the right of me. Is that pretty much what you're wanting to say too? You know, you're. Well, let's, ma'am, hold on here. I was just going to try to minimize this if I could, but traffic studies, noise levels, and everything, that'll be addressed. You know, this is just for the PDP. But if anyone else would like to speak, you're going to have to come up to the podium, and if you would state your name and address, sir. You raised your hand. Come on up. Well, okay, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Helen Perry. I live at 811 Del Rio Way, number 503, Merritt Island, FL, right across the street from where the hospital will be.
Okay.
We bought there because we had a house. It was getting too much. We bought this place with this beautiful 62-acre protected unit to the east of us, this rookery across the street from us, and this rookery has over 2,000 birds that come and nest there every night. They bring their babies there. We see them with their babies. They nest there. They develop every year. The generations come back. And I'm sure they've been going there before there were people ever living there. We're worried that that rookery is right next to the hospital. That rookery's going to, well, you saw the picture, the greenery. It goes all the way back to the storage unit that's also next to the hospital. That needs to be protected from light, because they put halogen lights on the building that they purchased next to them, where they're going to build the power unit, and the rookery started to move away. They took the lights back, and they came back. So they're going to have to protect those birds from the light and from the noise from the power plant. So they're going to have to build a wall or something and address that. They're also going to have to help us get in and out of our unit, because we can be effectively trapped in there with that road one way out. And they haven't done the traffic study yet, which you thought they would have done a lot sooner. You know, because it's kind of a done deal that they're going to build there anyhow. The ambulances were coming by, and I understand they're going to be quiet, and they're going to have to be quiet not just for us, but for the birds, because it's 24-hour-a-day kind of thing for that. But those are kind of two of the concerns, and we all enjoy watching the birds. They all fly by our buildings every day, at night, and every morning. So it's the traffic, the noise, and the birds.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Pete Vanderhagen, 801 Del Rio Way, Unit 404, Merritt Island. My concern is communication between the developer and our community. You know, we hear about waivers, but we don't know what they are. We don't know what they mean. They don't know the impact. We hear about traffic studies. I don't know why they haven't been done already, but we want to know when those studies are done. We want to know the results of those studies, and we want to have an opportunity to react to them. Same with any other things that are going on in the development process. For example, the north end where the ambulances come in off of Merritt Avenue, which I call the Merritt Island Speedway and drag race strip. That has three entrances, two for the ambulances and one for the alleyway going on that side. By moving those ambulance driveways just to the side on Borman, you eliminate traffic trying to get in and out of that parking lot and direct that traffic on Borman, which is far less traveled. If you've ever been on Borman and tried to turn left onto Merritt Avenue, you know, sometimes you're taking your life in your hands, and we're increasing the traffic, and we would like to know what the proposed solution is, not find out about it by the newspaper. We'd like to be involved in this process, and not because we're adversarial, but we want to be supportive. And in order to do that, we have to communicate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak for or against this item? Seeing that, I bring it back to the applicant.
I believe Mr. Menaboo had some questions.
You know, I probably know that area is probably about as well as anybody. Borman was here first. And we needless to say, we named that after an astronaut. And, you know, Borman at one time housed Kmart. They did a great job then with Kmart. And we were excited, the real people of Merritt Island, about the addition of Health First going over there. And let me assure you, the mass majority of the Merritt Island people are still excited. So don't, whatever transpires here on this board, don't be depressed, because this has been around for a long time. It's a great location. You know, the people have said, well, you know, their access, Merritt Avenue is not a raceway anymore. It's a storage lane for BJ's gas station. And if anybody tells you it's anything different, that is a BJ's combat zone for the gas tanks. And I've watched that now for many, many years. That condominium complex could have aligned with what was already there. But apparently they picked a better location. There's the only driveway there that's skewed from the other driveways that were there before they ever built that. You know, they worry about the traffic there, but they probably need to worry about that site was built on a source station. I mean, it's just amazing. And for many years, the road to the north was the Causeway Road. And you could have the access to all of the roads in Hampton Homes. So I think what you all have done is it's a tremendous job. Believe me, the people in Merritt Island are extremely excited. Health First, if they do it, it's going to be top shelf. I'm going to be very supportive of it. That's all I got to say.
I do have something else to say on what you
Well,
said.
ma'am, I'm sorry. Yeah, we've already been there. Henry, I'm going to say pretty much what you said, but the community, you heard their complaints, the issues, the birds, the traffic studies, communicate with the community.
We have emails from the community meeting. We will do that in a transparency.
And
For
Kim, I know
transparency.
you
We
will.
don't want to impact anyone negatively.
Right.
So we will do that.
I did not hear anyone say they opposed it, so that's a good thing. And so, seeing that, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Yes, sir, you got a question?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address Mr. Good. So the waivers you're requesting, therefore, FAA requirements for the height of the building for your heliport, is that correct?
No, the waivers are zoning waivers.
They're zoning
There
waivers.
will be a separate process that we will work
Separate
through with the
FAA
FAA.
process for the
That's its
access
own-
for,
its own animal.
Rescue One, okay. All right, the other aspect was the traffic study that's in motion right now, and the third would be noise abatement from your central utility plant. Do you have any issues with how you're going to do the noise abatement?
I'm not the right person to talk to
Oh,
about the
okay, I'm
noise
sorry.
abatement. I'm sorry.
So I think I can answer the question about the noise abatement. You know, we are interested in a very restful place at a hospital. And I'm personally overseeing that engineering for the entire mechanical plant. And I can assure you, in today's technology, that is not a challenge.
No,
We'll carry that off well.
I'm an engineer.
Yeah. So, I mean, with our support system, we'll be right there. In fact, you know, we could visit homes and show you how that would be done.
Correct.
So,
All right, I just wanted to make sure that the waivers are not necessarily, well, the waivers are zoning issues,
Yeah,
but
they are
the
zoning.
compliance for both the federal, the state, and the local
Yeah.
requirements will all be in place. All right, thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Ron.
I'm not sure who you goes to, but anyway, you said you're going to raise the level of the property. And what I heard was 13 feet.
Yes.
Is that the entire property?
That's the site just under the hospital.
Okay,
The hospital and the central utility plant will both be raised 13 feet. We did a model. We took 70 different modelings of a potential hurricane, category 4 or 5.
right. I
So-
commend you for doing that.
So we found that 13 feet elevation is a safe place for those two buildings to be.
Okay,
Now, the garage, of course, would be surrendered to a storm if it came, but that's just the garage, if that storm surge came that high.
okay. And then the other buildings that are on the rest of the property, are you going to raise the level of those as well, or?
They're on top of the garage, so they're already at that height.
I mean, no, in the village.
The village buildings are on the second story of the garage. So they're sitting at that height. That first floor of the village is essentially higher than the first floor of the hospital.
Ah,
So they are
okay.
protected, they're elevated,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to commend you guys for doing your storm surge analysis. You may not know, for 30 years, I've been with the DHS FEMA teams. I was in Hurricane Irma, I was in Hurricane Michael, devastated Mexico Beach. One structure survived, and that he built to the coastal construction zone. You know, I had the unfortunate task of searching those buildings. So I commend you very much on your ability to have the foresight to look into storm surge.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I got Mr. Ben ahead of you.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank all the presenters for putting this awesome packet together. I agree with Henry that if Health First is involved, this will be beautiful. It will definitely be an amazing improvement to this area, and I'm excited for it. I don't live in Merritt Island, hopefully never have to visit this place, but I think I'm definitely in support of it, and I think it's great for the community.
Thank you, Ben. Yes, sir, Joe.
I also like what it will do to Merritt Island. This area is shifting. The mall is suffering, and I was wondering how you would handle pedestrian traffic from the mall to the hospital grounds. Because we do have some crosswalks there, but how does somebody access to your hospital facility without having to go through the garage?
So, you know, we've been in some conversations with the owners of the mall just to tentatively discuss about how would people cross 520. But there is a stoplight there, and we're hoping to make sure that's utilized across 520. Once they get on our campus, immediately inside our garage, it'll be welcoming to enter that garage. You can go up into the village. There's elevators right there in that south end. So you'll rise up into the village there.
Okay, so in the south corner, you're saying?
Yeah, the south side, the south
And you have
south
stairwell
central.
also in there?
Stairwells, yes. Well, for exiting reasons, there's stairwells.
Because, I mean, it would be nice for people to be able to meander through your village.
That's the intention.
Yeah.
It is a village, please come and see, and please come and spend some time there. And it's for us, it's about wellness. You know, we're seeking to make people well and educate folks if we can.
Okay.
Oh, yes, yeah, thanks for reminding me. The campus is large enough, as we do at other hospitals. We have golf carts for those who choose a ride on a golf cart. There'll be volunteers circulating on golf carts to transport people across all this acreage if they want to go that way.
Okay, so that raises the question, you have golf cart parking somewhere in
Well,
your garage, or?
These are our golf carts.
No, I
Yeah.
understand, but I
Yeah,
mean,
there's-
you know, you're going to have more than one.
Yes, we'll have a home for them, actually built into the garage, operated by our security or our volunteers.
I noticed you only had a limited amount of surface parking on the north side of the site.
Yes.
Is that sufficient for your medical staff, or, I mean, who's going to use that?
The parking on the north side of the site is really for those patients and families who come into the emergency department. The staff will be parking in the garage.
Okay,
Yes,
all right. Because it was, I think it was only like 52 spots
correct.
or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like 50 spaces meant to handle those folks who come into the emergency department.
So it won't be for any staff?
No.
It'll just be for
No.
people using the hospital?
Right, for emergency patients.
Okay. And one of the questions about noise abatement, everybody was talking about your physical plant making noise. What about sirens from your ambulances coming in on Merritt Avenue?
Well, it's really part of the practice that they turn the sirens off as they approach the hospital. And I think there's a 300-yard rule there, and that's what they currently do.
Okay.
So we would want that to be continued here at this site.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I got a couple. Might as well make a few, right?
Might as well.
I wanted to elaborate on his comment about the sidewalks, because I don't see a connection from the crosswalk at the intersection at the light into the site. It just kind of ends there at the driveway.
Yeah,
And then what is gonna, I don't see it actually taking you anywhere into the property.
the rendering is, at an angle, bird's eye. There is a sidewalk that will take you up into our property to the north from the intersection.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
not seeing it.
I
I know you're gonna have to do it because they were gonna require you to get
Yeah,
to the
we're going to
facility.
be
I just
required to
didn't
do
see
it, and we want to do it. We want
Yeah.
this to be a walking campus.
No, good. It makes sense. Are any of the waivers you're gonna be asking for waivers to any of the performance standards, which is noise and lighting? Because if you're not, then your lighting is gonna be a million times better than what it is now, because the requirement is so strict. So that would address the bird issue and the lighting. So I think by just meeting the county's code on performance standards for lighting, which I know you guys are very familiar with, that lighting's going to be,
Right.
you won't really have lighting leaving that property. It's going to be very, very
Yes.
non-obtrusive to anything that's not on the site. And I heard like a distance number of 400 and something feet, and I just did a quick measurement on my laptop, and it looks like from the nearest building at the condominium to your closest property corner is about 500 feet. So it looks like everything's farther than 500 feet. And we just did a central utility plant for the school. I mean, they have them in elementary schools and junior high schools, and it's 40 feet from your hospital and over 500 feet from the nearest residential. So I think, and they're pretty good. They don't make a lot of noise, so I think that's going to be fine. That was really my only concerns. I mean, I could probably talk all day about traffic, but I don't really want to. I mean, there's already a lot of traffic there, and Henry's right. I mean, it is what it is, and it's going to, the improvements will be once you get the traffic study done. But no, I think you've done a great job. I mean, anytime you redevelop a site that's basically paid from property line to property line and meets no current standards and is basically polluting the river right now, the way it is, making that improvement by treating the stormwater before it leaves the site is a huge improvement for the area. So that's really important. So I don't see any negative issues with this. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
So I greatly appreciate y'all on the presentations, and Kim. I've got a few other things that I'd like to add to what you bring to Merritt Island because of this project. I spent 12 years on Merritt Island with an elected official, and working with your Merritt Island Redevelopment Agency over the years, this is what they were waiting for. So they've been preparing for this moment for the last 12, 15 years. Not only will this foster revitalization through public investments, it improves the infrastructure and aesthetics for the Merritt Island community. Your current property is blighted, and the change of zoning classification built long before stormwater regulations and currently has absolutely no stormwater regulations or treatment. And the rookery that you all are talking about, that property currently flows to that rookery, and the water's untreated. So by virtue of their new development, will bring treated water to that part of Sykes Creek, the Ulame, all that water is untreated currently going out into those waters. The Merritt Island Redevelopment Agency has worked tirelessly over the years to redevelop that part of the Merritt Island corridor, the stormwater, the flooding, to stimulate economic growth and promote private sector development opportunities and maintain a safe and prosperous community, all while enhancing the quality of life for the Merritt Island families, visitors, and businesses. And I'll agree with Henry, and I know it's hard to understand the Del Rio condo owners, but that was a Walmart or a Kmart. That traffic, you're not adding any more traffic. The traffic went away when Health First closed down. So this is not increased traffic, it's just the traffic that was already there. So another benefit to me is the Veterans Center just south of this property is a great example of collaboration with MIRA, the county, state agencies coming together not only to treat the stormwater for that part of Sykes Creek, but also created a downtown center with walking trails, hosting community events, a place for our veterans to be, to receive services and programs. This, to me, is a win-win for Merritt Island, and it's continuing the vision and creating that downtown destination. And I know what you're doing. I know you will partner with those veterans because they won't have anything else but partnerships. And it's just a good partnership. I believe Health First Project continues that success and would be a welcome partner to continue the long-term goals of revitalization and the economic benefits to the community. And I gotta applaud you too. You've brought on the A-team. I mean, Kim is a Merritt Island long-term resident, and we know where she lives. So if this project doesn't go well, right? I also understand your lobbyist is a Merritt Island resident. I mean, so you're bringing on people who are invested in the Merritt Island community,
Right.
and they're gonna, I think, hold you to the fire. So I applaud you for that. And I also applaud, I just have to say something, Dwayne Watson, a local realtor, I gotta say over 50 years, working with you all on bringing quality businesses along the corridor. This is something that Merritt Island has been planning and planning and planning, and we just never knew when it was gonna happen. And so having your conceptual plan, the fact that you're gonna be, supportive of understanding the community's needs with the traffic, the noise, and the fact that you already had a community meeting, and I haven't heard anything negative, not even from the paper, so that's always a good sign.
Thank you.
Typically, they come with pitchforks, and so I'm glad to see you didn't leave bleeding. So I guess with Health First commitment and success to the redevelopment and revitalization of this corridor, and I'm going to tell you, it's a game changer for Merritt Island. And this is what CRAs are supposed to do, and CRAs have been criticized over the years, but they look to improve the community so that you bring in quality investment and quality businesses to the community. And that only raises the tax base. So it's a win-win for everyone. So I just want to thank you for your investment, and I want to thank you for doing it right and working with the neighbors. And like I said, it's a game changer, and I know Merritt Island is a pretty cool community. I call them an island with an attitude, and it's just, I know you're going to be very happy with this community and the partnerships that you're going to foster. So unless anyone else has any questions, I would move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Liz, a second by John. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before we adjourn the meeting, we're going to have to, somebody needs to make a motion.
I'm going to nominate Ben for vice chair.
And I'm going to second that.
Any other nominations?
Are there any other nominations?
I nominated myself before, but Ben can take it.
Okay, we got a motion by Bruce, a second by Henry for Ben. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Welcome, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Board. That was quick.
Yeah, right. That's a rhetorical question. If I've ever heard one. That's fine. Well, they're not out of the woods yet, I guess.
We had a lot to go over.
Say one thing to you.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by